Welcome to the Disrupting Obesity podcast. I'm Charlotte Skanes, and I'll be sharing ways to regain control over your body and lose an extreme amount of weight naturally. Being fat is about so much more than just the food. It's about your relationship with food. That means that dealing with your weight is about more than just the food, too. You have to change that relationship. You have to start disrupting obesity. This is our first Ask Whatever of the new year, and I'm going to do things just a little bit differently this time around. First of all, I'm going to fly by the seat of my pants with these. It worked well right before Christmas, so we're going to give it a go again. Second of all, we need 3 parts for this one because it's massive. It's huge. What I've done is I have taken every question you guys have ever sent in about intermittent fasting, how I used it, why I used it, all those questions. I've taken them all, and it's over 100 questions about intermittent fasting. I cut those down to about 75 or so, and then I put all of the normal questions in one area and the Gladys questions in another pile. So I learned a few things just through that little exercise. The first thing I learned is that Gladys gets insanely triggered by just the idea of intermittent fasting. I think I've kept about 34 normal questions, but there are 41 from Gladys. And those are just the ones that I'm willing to answer. Some of the questions that came in, I'm not even willing to read them out loud. I just won't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer the nice normal questions first, and then I'm going to try and work my way through today's Gladys questions. And we're going to see how it goes. The Happy Bottom Brigade, which is what I call Gladys and her friends, they have been very busy. I am going to change some of the language. I won't publicly call myself the names that they call me. And I know that I swear a lot on here. But I really had to clean this list up. It's just, no. So I knew when I started doing all of this, that the internet can be a very cruel place. And I decided to take this on anyway. So I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for me. This is just what it's like on the internet. Gladys is as Gladys does. So let's get to some normal questions before we go spend some time with her. And let's talk about intermittent fasting. Why did you choose intermittent fasting? I didn't choose intermittent fasting. I had no clue what I was doing or what it was called. I don't know if we called it that when I lost my weight the first time around. I know intermittent fasting was a term when I lost all the weight back 6-7 years ago, but I'm not sure if it was a term the first time I lost my weight. All I knew was that I loved to eat at night, and everything else I tried didn't work. I tried never skipping breakfast. I tried the 6 small meals a day. I tried don't eat after 6 o'clock. Don't eat after 7 o'clock. Don't eat after 8 o'clock. All of those, I tried them all. None of it worked. I was just gaining more weight. I might lose a couple pounds, but at the end of the day, when all was said and done and I had given up, I would end up heavier than I was when I started. So what we now call intermittent fasting, to me, was just a last-ditch effort to try and do something to deal with the 200 pounds that I had to lose. Because I knew I liked eating at night, I thought, I'm going to lean into this. We're going to roll on it. If they say you should only eat during the day, maybe that's for people who like eating during the day. I like eating at night, so I'm only going to eat at night. And that was how I started doing it. So I stopped eating anything before 6 p.m. And I did the majority of my eating probably between 6 p.m. and 11, but my window stayed open. I was a university student, so I was up till 3-4 o'clock in the morning. There was no way I could close a fasting window at 6 p.m. I can't be up for 8-9 hours with egg. I just can't. Well, I can if I do it the other way, but I can't if I do it that way. And that was what I learned. That was the big thing I found out about myself. I had never been a breakfast person. Even when I was a kid, it was always a battle for my parents to get me to eat breakfast. But something I found was if I ate breakfast, it was like I turned my hunger on. So once I had breakfast, once I eat, I'm hungry. So I have an 8 o'clock breakfast. By 10 o'clock in the morning, all I can think about is lunch. By 11 o'clock, I am starving and obsessing. By noon, I'm eating a great big meal. I think about food all afternoon. I have my big supper. And the problem is, I'm a night eater. So whether I eat, 2,000 calories during the day, whether I eat 500 calories during the day, I still want to eat at night. It does not matter. But what I found was when I didn't eat breakfast, I didn't start fixating on food. The food noise just disappeared. And I could focus on what I was doing throughout my day, getting all the way through. Like, it's not like I was sleeping until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. No, I was a university student with multiple jobs and I was really busy. But I just didn't break that fast until 6 p.m. or later. The overwhelming majority of the time. Of course, there were exceptions. It's not like I would go to my grandparents' house for Christmas dinner and sit there at noon refusing to eat. No, of course not. But it was what worked for me. It worked so well that I kept doing it after I lost my weight to maintain my weight. And it worked then too. So I ate like a normal person. I just ate all of those calories during, that 6 to 8 hour window that opened at 6 p.m. And I didn't eat during the day or take in any calories during the day. It was all 0-calorie drinks and water. That was it. Is intermittent fasting sustainable for long-term weight loss, or is it just another fad? It is absolutely sustainable for long-term weight loss. From where I'm sitting, it's far more sustainable for long-term weight loss. And I think you mean like weight loss that's going to take a long time, which most weight loss does take a long time. That's a whole other thing. It is very sustainable for weight loss that takes a long time. From my experience, it has been very sustainable for maintenance as well. I don't believe it's a fad. Intermittent fasting has existed in one form or another for as long as we have written records of people. And we all fast, right? Nobody is eating 24 hours a day. Nobody. Even the people who are sleep eaters, is that what they call it? There's a technical term for that, but the people who eat in their sleep, they're not eating the entire time they're asleep. So everyone is fasting at some point in time over their day. We all are. We all break our fast and then eat and then stop eating and go sleep. So I don't think it's a fad. Everyone's already doing it. It's just a matter of how tight your window can be. There have been intermittent fasting fads. It certainly comes and goes with its popularity. OMAD was big a couple of years ago. Those are the 1 meal a day people, which is exactly what it sounds like. Although there are a couple of ways of doing OMAD fasting. Some people just have the 1 meal a day where they just sit and eat it all. And then other people consider OMAD to just be like a really narrow window. So somebody who's only eating in a 2-hour window, they're doing a 22-2 or they're doing a 24, something along those lines. And when I use those numbers, the first number is how long you're fasting, and the second number is your eating window. Those are the two ways they work. What are the different types of intermittent fasting, and how do I figure out which one is best for me? I like this question a lot. There are so many different ways to do intermittent fasting. Some people do it the more conventional way, which is what I did, which just, narrow your daily eating window, pick a group of hours and eat during those. There are people who do OMAD, like we were just talking about. There are people who do weird stuff. I think it's weird. There are people who do weird stuff, like they don't eat for 2 days and then they eat for a day, and then they don't eat for 2 days and they eat for a day. I don't think any of that is sustainable. And I don't think you need to eat every day. Like, we need food every single day. That's kind of just the bottom line. The best way to figure out which one is ideal for you, first of all, is to raise your awareness right now of what your eating window currently looks like. How much time are you spending each day eating? And I don't mean eating. I mean, what does your window look like? You typically get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you break your fast at 7, and you're eating until 10 o'clock at night. That type of awareness. Because once you have those numbers, then you can start to shrink that window down, right? So let's say that you're eating from, we'll keep it easy, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Okay. So you're eating for 16 hours a day, and you're not eating for 8. So you're doing an 8-16. Ideally, you want the number on the left to be bigger than the number on the right. So you want to spend more time fasting than you do eating in an ideal world. So what I would do then, if you're doing an 8-16, is I would slowly start shifting it. I would shave a half an hour off each end or an hour off one end. And I would make the changes incrementally and I would do it gradually. See how your body responds to that. So I normally break my fast at 7 a.m. What happens if I wait until 8? What if I shrink that down a bit? I normally keep eating until 10 o'clock at night. What if we just go to 9:30? What if we go to 9? Just gradually keep. Don't try to jump right into, I'm going to wake up on Monday morning and I'm going to be a 16-8 faster. Not if you've been doing the reverse for most of your life. That's a very bad idea. That's not a good way to set yourself up for success. You definitely want to take it slower than that. And like the changes that we make with food, you want to make the changes to your eating window incrementally and slowly as well. Can you track calories and do intermittent fasting at the same time? Will it work together? Yes, it will. That's how I lost my weight. More importantly, though, intermittent fasting won't work if you're not in a calorie deficit. It just won't. Nothing will work if you're not in a calorie deficit, period. Keto, carnivore, weight loss surgery, shakes, name anything you like. Ozempic, it doesn't matter. If you're not in a calorie deficit, you won't lose weight. So your best bet is to start narrowing that window, put an intermittent fasting place, even a very gentle one, into place and track your calories at the same time. I 100% advise that people do both. Intermittent fasting on its own isn't enough. Theoretically, sure. Like if you're used to eating 3 square meals a day and all of a sudden you're like, I'm just never eating breakfast again, and you don't move those calories to another point in the day, theoretically you'll lose weight because you've eliminated all those breakfast calories. That's not the problem. The problem is when you just ram all the calories that you're used to having into your intermittent fasting window and you eat them all anyway. You won't lose any weight just because you've moved when you're taking those calories in. Calories can't tell time. So you still need to be in a deficit to make your intermittent fasting work. How do I deal with hunger while I'm fasting, especially when I'm just starting out? That's another really good question. Gradually. We want to do this incrementally and gradually so that your hunger isn't always getting the best of you and it's not always at the forefront of your mind. You need to give yourself a chance to adjust. You need to give yourself time to get used to taking in few calories, and you need to get used to those different eating windows, right? And when you're fasting. So I would take a lot of the pressure off of yourself. Just back that off. Don't just jump right into, I'm only going to eat during a 4-hour window every day. It's not, you're going to feel hungry. You're going to feel hungry a lot of the time. Not a good idea. Gradually, incrementally, bring that window a little bit closer every week. Just keep shaving it down and see how you feel. Because you might find too, maybe you're like me and you don't need the food at the beginning of the day, but you feel like you're starving towards the end. Some people are the opposite. They desperately need a large amount of food to get their day going. And then as the day goes, their hunger wanes and it tapers off. You need to get the awareness of what type of a person you are when it comes to managing hunger. I would also say, probably at my own peril, and I know I'm raising a flag to the Gladyses here, hunger's not always a bad thing. It's natural to feel hungry. We're currently living in a society, and our culture is telling us, and has been for decades now, that the second you feel even a tiny twinge of hunger, you need to start looking for food immediately. And that's just not how humans have lived, right? We used to go sit down at our meals and it was normal to feel hungry for a meal. Somehow that's not normal anymore. And I'm not sure fully how that shift happened, but it definitely did. Hunger isn't always a bad thing. It doesn't indicate that something is wrong, especially like, you had a good breakfast. You had a good lunch 2 hours ago. You're not starving. So what's really going on with the hunger? I would question it. I always question it to try to figure out if I'm physically hungry or if it's something I'm dealing with emotionally that has me reaching for food. But yes, to be very specific about managing hunger, acknowledge that hunger happens, that it's okay. Just because you're hungry doesn't mean you have to eat, especially if you know you just ate and your calories for the day are good. So there's no reason for you to be physically hungry. A lot of it is going to be a mindset piece, gradually. Just bring it down gradually, narrow that window down gradually, taper it in. so that it's not such a shock to your system. How does intermittent fasting compare to traditional calorie restriction for weight loss? I'm not 100% sure on how to answer this one, but I'm going to try. Because of the way I think it has to be coupled with a calorie restriction, I think maybe I look at this one a little bit differently. I know, though, that there's a school of thought that believe that if you're intermittent fasting, you don't have to track your calories and that it isn't a calorie restriction. But unless you're in a restriction, unless you're in a calorie deficit, you won't lose weight no matter how narrow your intermittent fasting window is. Like, even if you're doing one meal a day and you only have a 2-hour window to eat in, if you're eating in a calorie surplus during that window, you will gain weight. So I know that traditionally, I guess, as you're saying, they're kept separate, where, you either intermittent fast or you put yourself into a calorie restriction, into a calorie deficit. You have to have both. You have to have them together. Like I kind of touched on earlier, for some people, intermittent fasting works on its own without tracking, at least initially, because they're cutting out an entire meal or they're cutting out all of their late night snacking. They're doing something to put themselves into a calorie deficit, or they wouldn't be losing weight. So from where I'm sitting, combining the two, doing your calorie tracking while you're doing intermittent fasting is just a way to keep yourself going a little bit better. I think it's a lot more motivating because you've got a 2-pronged attack, right? So it feels a little bit more like a safety net. What do I do if I get stuck in a plateau while I'm intermittent fasting? It's the same thing as dealing with a plateau on any other weight loss plan or system. You keep going. You have to keep going. There's no other way to do it. I'm assuming, because the question came in just about intermittent fasting, that this person is probably not tracking their calories at the same time. If you are just intermittent fasting, your weight is plateauing and you're not tracking calories, you need to start tracking calories to find out what's going on. Because odds are good you're either eating at your maintenance calories or a little bit above, and that's why you're not seeing any movement on the scale. How does intermittent fasting affect emotional eating patterns? That's a very individual question. Intermittent fasting helped me to deal with my emotional eating patterns, because instead of pretending they didn't exist and pretending that I wasn't someone who liked to compulsively eat at night, I grabbed that bowl and wrestled it to the ground. I didn't feel like I had a choice. So I forced myself to confront my emotional eating patterns by picking my intermittent fasting window the way that I did. And I think that's something that other people could do as well. Perhaps not in the way that I did it. I know that's not practical for everybody. But by tightening your window, by looking at the times a day that you're eating, you're forcing yourself to confront why you're making those choices emotionally. And I know that night eating is a huge trap for a lot of us, especially when it comes to our comfort, reward, and cope mechanisms with food. So I think it's a valuable tool because it forces that confrontation, because you have to take a really serious look at what you're doing and ask yourself, why am I making these choices? And I think that can be easier to do if you have some sort of structure, and intermittent fasting will give you that structure and that framework to do that. Okay, this is the last of today's normal questions before I have to take a very deep breath, and we're going to dive into the pool with Gladys. So our last normal one for today: can I have coffee or tea during fasting windows? What are the rules about adding things like milk or sweeteners? So the deal with intermittent fasting is you've broken your fast as soon as you take in any calories. So if you are drinking black coffee, black tea, or you're using artificial 0-calorie sweeteners, fill your boots. Drink it the whole time. Go nuts. Just fill your boots with it. You're fine. The second you start taking in calories, though, you've broken your fast. Then the window has closed and you are now out of your fasting window and into your eating window. So you absolutely can have coffee or tea during your fasting window, so long as there are no calories involved. 100%. Same goes for pop or any drink. Doesn't matter. If it's 0 calories, go ahead. I would not transfer that to food, though. If you, by some miracle, have some 0-calorie food lying around, no, But with the drinks, absolutely. Yeah, you can totally have coffee or tea. You just can't load it with cream and sugar and all of that stuff. But you can definitely have it. I think my biggest challenge with these is going to be reading them without doing some sort of a voice because they're just so snarky. And I love how Gladys really like to include the extra words. Okay, so our first one is oh. So, and it's the O. Like this one actually opens with O, comma. Okay. Oh. So now you're saying that intermittent fasting is the answer. Didn't you lose all your weight without fasting? It seems like you're just jumping on a trend to stay relevant. Okay. Yeah. Well, about that. No, I'm not just saying now that intermittent fasting is the answer. You can go back. You can go to my old account that I shut down. I don't even know 3 years ago. It's that account. It was all. I've been very honest and very upfront about this. You can go all the way back to episode 001 of this podcast, and you can hear me say, I lost my weight with intermittent fasting and a calorie deficit. It's all over my Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube channel. I'm not jumping on a trend or trying to stay relevant. I lost all of my weight with intermittent fasting, and I have been very, very clear about that. I also lost my weight by being in a calorie deficit because that's the only way that anyone can lose weight. Not just me. It's not just some miraculous thing that happens for me. It happens for everybody. So no, I've never said that I lost all of my weight without fasting. You might be thinking of another podcaster. I don't know who, but I definitely lost my weight. 100% of it, both times, using intermittent fasting and a very conscious calorie deficit. That was how I did it. All right, we've made it to the second Gladys question, and I don't want to read this one out loud either, but we're going to. You talk about sustainability, but how is skipping meals and starving yourself sustainable? Isn't that just another crash diet with a fancy name? No, no, it's not. It's a system of eating that human beings have used for literally thousands of years to control lots of different things, but in particular their weight. It's not skipping meals. It's definitely not starving yourself. I don't know how anyone could look at me at 338 pounds, taking in 3,000 calories a day in a deficit and go, oh, skipping meals and starving yourself. No, it's not what I was doing. 3,000 calories a day is not starving yourself. When I'm in a deficit now and I drop down to 1,200 calories, I just said 1,200 calories. Okay, I do. I have 1,700 calories a day. You can punch my stats into a TDE calculator and see it for yourself, Glads. So if I want to be in a calorie deficit, which happens from time to time, I have to drop down to 1,200 calories a day. Also, not starving myself. And I didn't feel like I was skipping meals. I wasn't doing OMAD. I don't think you understand what intermittent fasting looks like for a lot of people. So yes, I would get up in the morning. I would have my Diet Coke. I would feel great about myself all day without feeling hungry, just living along my merry little life. And then at about 6 o'clock at night, Sean and I would sit down and we would have dinner. And that would be my first meal of the day. But it would be like a traditional supper, like, ooh, look, just a whole meal, right? And then a couple hours later, I would start to feel hungry again. So I would go get a slightly smaller meal. I might have an egg on toast or probably a couple eggs on toast. I might have a couple eggs on toast and then have some pudding or something. And then a few hours after that, I might grab a snack. And then at like midnight, I would probably grab myself something, grab a hot dog and I don't know, a bowl of soup, whatever. So I wasn't skipping meals. I just wasn't eating them when you dictate I should eat them. I was eating 3 meals a day. I was just doing it between 6 p.m. and midnight. That's all. That's the bit that upsets people. I don't think it's a crash diet. I don't think it's a fancy name. I was taking in all of the calories that my body needed to lose weight in a healthy and a sustainable way. Period. It wasn't skipping meals. It was moving when I had them. I didn't skip anything. I'm sure this works for you, but what about normal people? You can sit around planning eating windows all day. I don't have that kind of time. Okay, I, I don't even know. I thought I was a normal person, I guess. Apparently I'm not, and that's okay. I don't have to sit around planning my eating window all day. I did it one time and then it was done. It was a one and done job. You would only have to do it one time too. Just figure out what your eating window is now and then just collapse it just a little bit on the ends or just on one end and just sort of shift it a little bit. Lots of normal people do this. I have 3 kids, all under the age of 11. So I'm not sure how much time you think I have on my hands to do things. Gladys. Yeah. Okay. Next question. You keep saying you're against toxic diet culture. Yeah, I am. But isn't this just another version of restriction? Aren't you part of the problem? I guess. I don't know what to tell you there. You're not going to lose weight, Gladys, without some form of a restriction. I really hate to be the bearer of bad news on this one. You can't keep eating in a calorie surplus and expect to gain weight. Math doesn't work that way. Human biology doesn't work that way. Thermodynamics don't work that way. It just, nope. You have to have some sort of a restriction. People think I'm part of the problem because of the way that I go about it and because I tell people that they can still lose weight eating whatever they want, so long as they're in a deficit. I understand that you think that makes me part of the problem. From where I'm sitting, I feel like it's making me part of the solution. And sorry, but there are thousands of women around the world who agree with me. So yeah, okay, next one. Oh, this one was a good one. Okay, I actually really liked this one. And again, with the Gladyses, they gotta have the little, anyway, the filler words. Let's be real. Okay, I thought I was doing that, but all right, let's do it. Let's be real. Isn't intermittent fasting just an excuse to skip breakfast so you can eat more junk later? Seems like a loophole, not a lifestyle. Well, I've got bad news for you, Gladys. I wasn't skipping breakfast so I could eat more junk later. I was just eating whatever junk I wanted to later anyway. So whether I ate it at breakfast time or whether I ate it later in the day, it's not a loophole. I I struggle so much with this. Why can't you just let us have it? Right? If someone is struggling with their weight, they're trying to do things to get that weight under control. And then you just come in and shit on whatever anybody's trying to do because you don't like it. It's not your way. I'm sorry you think intermittent fasting is a loophole and that it's somehow cheating the system. Fat people don't deserve to be punished for being fat. So if we can find a way to do it, like, I don't know, skipping breakfast so that we can eat whatever we want at 10 o'clock at night, I'm going to take that lifestyle because that lifestyle is what helped me to get 200 pounds off and get into a slimmer, healthier body. So I'm good with this one. You want to call it a loophole? Fine. It's a semantic difference that I'm willing to take. Oh, this one's kind of a repeat. I'll do it anyway, though, just so we can get it over with because there's a bunch more of these and then we've got 2 whole more episodes of them. If intermittent fasting is so great, why didn't you do it when you lost your weight? Are you admitting your old methods didn't work? No, I've been very upfront about the fact this is how I lost my weight. I'm sorry if you weren't paying attention to that part. I'm sorry if you missed it. I'm glad you sent in a question to get clarity. I 100% lost my weight using intermittent fasting. My fasting window was 6 p.m. on, midnight, 2 in the morning, in there. I tried to keep to 8 hours. That was it. No, my old methods absolutely did work. Although, as I said on Instagram earlier today, the biggest mistake I made was not using artificial sweeteners. So I'm just going to and low fat products. So I'm going to let you chew on that and we're going to move on. You say intermittent fasting isn't for everyone, but how do you know who's ready and who isn't? Sounds like you're just covering your tracks to avoid backlash. Okay. Nothing is for everyone. There is nothing out there, maybe except for breathing, that is universally for everybody all the time. Intermittent fasting, like every other form of diet program out there, works for some people and it doesn't work for others. It's not up to me to decide who's ready and who isn't. That's an individual decision. I'm not trying to cover my ass, and believe me, there is no avoiding any backlash. You're question number 16 on this little list, Gladys, and I've still got 30 more of you people to deal with. So I'm not trying to cover my ass, and I'm definitely not trying to avoid backlash. It is unavoidable. Skipping meals sounds miserable. Why would anyone want to do this? Isn't it just better to eat less instead of playing these mind games? Sure. Here's the thing though. You have to eat less anyway, and some people need a structure. They need some sort of assistance to get themselves to the point where they're eating less. And for a lot of people, that means telling themselves, I'm not going to eat every minute that I'm awake. I'm no longer going to be the type of person who can eat all day just whenever I feel like it. I'm going to put some boundaries in place for myself to try and get my eating under control. I think that's why people want to do it. And as I said to another Gladys just a minute ago, I wasn't skipping meals. People who are intermittent fasting are not skipping meals. That is a misconception. We're not skipping anything. We're moving it. We are shifting it. That's all. Oh, and I do want to say too, it's all a mind game. Losing weight isn't about the food. It's about your relationship with food. It's about what's happening with these mind games that we play with ourselves when we're overweight and when we're obese and we're trying to deal with our weight. We're already trapped in a lot of mind games. And sometimes this intermittent fasting, putting this sort of structure into place, it can give you what you need to help you get your way through the mind games and to make them stop. This one might have been one of my favorites when I was given the list once over. Intermittent fasting feels like a scam. Eat in a window? Seriously? Why not just admit that it's a way to trick people into eating less? Oh, have I ever got more bad news for you? Everything is trying to trick you into eating less. That's how weight loss works, honey. The surgeries, the shots, the shakes, carnivore. Name literally anything that's out there for weight loss, and it is trying to trick you into eating less. That's how this whole process works. I get it. It feels like a scam. Everything feels like a scam. Most of the shit out there is a scam when it comes to weight loss. So I totally understand that feeling. I can assure you I'm not trying to trick anybody. I think I'm extremely transparent about what it is that I'm doing over here. So yeah, I'm really sorry that it feels like a scam to you and that you feel like you're being tricked. And I mean, since like seriously now, I really am sorry. I felt that way a lot of the time too. I felt like everybody was lying to me. I felt like everybody was just trying to take my money and nobody actually wanted to help. I get that feeling. And I'm really, really sorry that you feel that way. I am not trying to trick anyone. I'm trying to be honest and upfront about what it actually takes and the work that you need to do up here to deal with it. Talking about things like intermittent fasting, that's the nuts and bolts of weight loss. That's the really concrete side to all of this. So I go over it because it's helpful and because people need that structure to start losing their weight. They need something, right? But it's not a trick. I'm not interested in tricking anybody, and I am really sorry that you feel that way, and I understand why you do. But that's not who I am, and that's not what I'm doing. You always talk about emotional eating, but how does fasting help with that? Don't you think it's cruel to tell people to just not eat when food is already a struggle for them? I have never told anyone to just not eat. And you used quotes in your comment here, so I'm going to use them right back at you. I've never told anyone to just not eat. All of us need to be taking in the number of calories our body needs every day. A moderate deficit is not dangerous. Shaving 200 to 500 calories off of your total daily energy expenditure every day is not dangerous. It is a controlled way to gradually and consistently lose weight. That's what I'm after. That's what I'm after. So no, I'm not trying to, I definitely, these are the ones that are hard for me not to take personally because I felt like people were very cruel to me when I was losing weight. And when I set out to do this, one of the things that I absolutely didn't want to do was to be cruel, because there are already so many voices out there that are so negative and so harmful and so hurtful in the weight loss space that I never wanted to be counted among them. So it does kind of hurt a little bit when the comments like this one come in. I'll be fine. I'll get over this quick, I promise. But no, I'm not. I don't think it's cruel. I'm definitely not trying to be cruel. And I have never told anyone to just not eat. I advise people to move their eating windows around to find the best time for their body, when their body responds best to food. Some of us do really well when our days are front loaded. Some of us need to save calories for the end of the day. I had a grandfather who was a farmer and he needed like 60% of his day's calories all came in at noon, right? Because he'd been working since 4 o'clock in the morning with the cows and he was going back out to work the fields all afternoon. So it all depends on your body and how you respond to things. And from an emotional perspective, that's where you get the help you need, right? If you start changing that relationship with food, if you start taking a look at why you're making the choices, when you're making the choices that you're making them, if you get that time frame under control, you now have this space to emotionally look at what you're doing because you're not just focused on the timing all the time. All right, we're getting there. I think we've got like 5 or 6 questions left. So, and I haven't given up and I haven't skipped them. I haven't skipped any of the Gladys questions. So we're doing very well. I'm getting through them here. If fasting is natural, why do so many people complain about being tired, cranky, and unable to focus? Doesn't sound very healthy to me. Well, you know what that sounds like to me, Glads? That sounds like people on any diet, anytime, all of them. All of them. People who are trying to lose weight are tired, cranky, unable to focus. We're thinking about food. We're thinking about the stuff we're not letting ourselves have. So that's going to be a problem regardless of what you're doing. But yes, I will maintain that fasting is natural. We sleep, therefore we fast. There is no one who doesn't sleep. So fasting is absolutely a natural part of human existence. Oh, sure. You make it sound so easy. But what about when people binge the second their fasting window ends? Doesn't that undo all the magic of fasting? No, not really. And sorry, we had quotes around magic in the magic of fasting. I'm not, I think I'm the last person ever who you'll hear argue that losing weight is easy. Nope. If you go back and listen, I think you'll hear me say, this is hard, more times than I've said pretty much anything else. This is a very difficult thing. I'm not trying to make anything sound easy. I'm just trying to be realistic about what it looks like. So this isn't the answer you're going to want to hear. There's nothing wrong with eating the second your fasting window ends, and it doesn't undo the magic of fasting. That's ridiculous. Sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. No, the magic of fasting does not get undone because you eat. So for me, for example, so I would be up and working, going to school, doing my thing all day, and then I would break my fast at 6 o'clock. You have a set number of calories your body needs. So I needed 3,000 calories a day in a deficit when I started losing weight. So if at 6 o'clock at night I sat down and ate 3,000 calories, just bang, 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 it's 3,000. That's how many calories my body needed, and I would still be in a deficit. Calories can't tell time. They can't. We all know people who work shift work, who work night shift, who do overnights, who work swing shift. Healthy weighted people, calories can't tell time. So no, you can eat it. You can eat all of the food in one go without undoing any magic as soon as your fasting window closes. That's not a problem. You can spread out those calories however you like. I just want you to try and find the most effective way to spread them out so that you don't feel like you're deprived all the time. That's all. Ooh, we got more sassy Gladys. Here we go. All right. Ooh, and this one was actually an ooh. Look who's suddenly an expert on intermittent fasting. You're just trying to stay trendy because your old school advice is getting boring, aren't you? No, I'm fine with being boring. And this is a drum that I've been banging since day one. So my old school advice has not changed, and it's not going to change because it's science. And this is how you lose weight. You need to be in a calorie deficit. So however you get there is up to you. And if you want to use intermittent fasting as a tool to do so, fill your boots. No, my advice hasn't changed. I'm sorry you're bored with it. But that's why we have Flicka. You can just keep flicking. You don't have to listen to me. You'll be good. Oh, I don't like this question. See, I just read it ahead in my head and I don't like this. Actually, I don't like the last two questions. All right, let's just go. Here we go. I guess losing weight the first time wasn't enough for you. Okay. You had to jump on the fasting bandwagon to prove you're still relevant. Who are you even doing this for? Okay, well, there's a few questions in there, I guess. I guess losing weight the first time wasn't enough for you. No, because I gained about 115 pounds back, so I had to take it off. And I didn't jump on any bandwagon. I lost my weight the same way both times. I was just more efficient with it the second time around because I knew what I was doing. So I was confident. And I also had better tools. I didn't have a calorie tracking app the first time around. All I had was a notepad. So the app was super helpful. I didn't jump on any bandwagons. Your last question, though, and I can already hear my voice doing its thing. I decided I was going to do this when I was dying, and I was in the hospital, and I have a very clear moment in my mind looking out the hospital window. I was on they called it the 14th floor, but it was the 13th floor. And I was looking out the window at all of the Toronto skyscrapers. It was a really gray day in downtown Toronto. And I remember the conversation I had with myself that if I lived, that I would find a way to make it worthwhile, that I would find a way to give back and to make my second chance worth it. And I remember that very clearly. And then after I got home, and I'd been home for a while, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to keep that promise. And I was looking around at the weight loss landscape, and it was just a fucking mess. I'm doing this for anybody who is where I was. I'm doing this for the me that weighed 338 pounds and was terrified I'd be dead before my 30th birthday. I'm doing this for the people who are afraid and who feel like there is no hope at all, because I know how that feels. And it's about the worst feeling that a person can possibly have. I'm sorry, this one, and I know I can just edit all of this out, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll just cut all of this out and you guys won't have to watch me doing all this blubbering and nonsense. I'm doing this for the people who are like I was. I'm doing this for the people who are scared and who feel like they can't, because I know that they can, because I did. So who are you even doing this for? I'm doing this for listeners in 111 countries and more than 5,100 cities. I'm doing this for 200,000 people over on Instagram. I'm doing this for the people on YouTube. I'm doing this for anyone who feels trapped and scared. I just want to, I guess, put my voice out there and not just show how I did it, but help others to learn how to do it for themselves too. That's who I'm even doing this for. And I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it for me. I think it matters. I know you don't. But I do. I think it matters. Okay. Last question. Last question. You keep saying it's not about deprivation, but isn't that what intermittent fasting is? You're just dressing it up to sell more stuff, aren't you? Okay. More accusations, more questions all rolled up into one. I keep saying it's not about deprivation. It's not. It's about putting yourself in a calorie deficit. I understand that can feel like desperation, but there are other things you can do to mitigate that. No, intermittent fasting is not about deprivation. It is about using a tool to get yourself into a calorie deficit so you can lose weight. That's it. No, I'm not trying to dress anything up. If anything, I'm typically accused of stripping things down and oversimplifying. So I don't think I'm gussying up anything. And I'm not trying to sell more content, as you put it. You're just dressing it up to sell more content. No, I don't sell my content. I wish I did. There are a lot of people who think I'm a complete idiot because I don't. But if you're listening to this podcast, you are listening to it without ads, because for over a year now, I have refused to turn the ads on on the podcast because if I do, they can play anything they want. So you could be listening to me talking about how you can lose weight eating whatever you want, and all of a sudden you're listening to an Ozempic ad. Or I could be talking about how you don't have to exercise to lose weight because you definitely don't have to exercise to lose weight. And then all of a sudden you're listening to a gym membership commercial or something. So I haven't done that. I have turned down every single brand deal I have been offered, and I get offers every week. I've been offered thousands of dollars to sell weight loss drugs. I get offers to sell random shit like jewelry and clothes and supplements and food plans and you name it. My DMs are just riddled with companies wanting to hitch their wagon onto mine. No, I should be trying to sell more. But that's just not, it's not how I operate. So this feels like such a downer to have to end things on. I hate ending on Gladys. But no, I'm not trying to sell ads or anything like that. But thank you so much, for coming out. I think that's pretty funny. Take a look, check out my feed, even my recipe posts. I don't have a single sponsored recipe post. Even those are unsponsored because I just haven't done it. I haven't found anybody I'm willing to work with yet. I'm sure somebody must be out there, but I haven't found them yet. If you're not a Gladys, and you know what, even if you are a Gladys, I'm here for you too, Glads. I want to help, genuinely. I really, really do want to help. And I've got a few things that I think will help you with that. There's my free stuff. There's the guide to getting started for the last time, which isn't just for people who are getting started. It's for anybody who wants to start for the last time and just deal with this once and for all. It's still free. It will always be free. Links are in the notes. I did a webinar and I developed special worksheets to help you to implement some of the steps from the Get Started for the Last Time guide. Those are also still free. Those will also always be free. You can get them through the links. If you sign up, we'll send you the replay to the webinar so you can watch me explain all of it, and you'll get the worksheets as well. I've got a weight loss workbook on Amazon called Disruptor. You can find it there just by searching my name in Disruptor. There's the cookbook. There's my website, disruptingobesity.com, where you can find all of this stuff that I've been talking about. There's the program, which is my 53-week immersive weight loss experience. And my new baby, which is my membership, which is where I go live on calls with my flamingos. Right now I'm doing 3-4 times a week. And we talk all with things weight loss. We hold each other accountable. And that's my monthly membership that you can sign up for and join me over there if you would like. And I'll drop all the links for that in the notes. Anyway, I hope you have an amazing week. Don't let the Gladyses get you down. Keep trying, keep tracking, don't be intimidated, and don't give up. I will see you back here next week for part 2. Thank you for listening to Disrupting Obesity with Charlotte Skanes. If you know it's time to take back control, lose the weight, and keep it off, reach out to me privately with a direct message on Instagram that says ready, so you can start disrupting obesity.